So yesterday we finally received the intro cutscene for Ashes of the Damned, which is going to be the name for the launch map for Black Ops 7 Zombies, the transit-inspired one. And in this video I want to break down literally everything you need to know and all of the secrets missed from the cutscene, as well as further details, and share some of my thoughts along the way. Today Treyarch have also revealed the logo for the map, which you can see on screen, and this is a really nice logo, very clean, I like it a lot. So I'm going to play the full cutscene for you to enjoy now, and then I'll jump back in a second to talk about it. Enjoy.
Welcome to the party.
We got that straight. It is a party, and y'all are the guests of honor. Or, technically, the main course.
And who the fuck are you?
I know. Y'all are confused. So was I. But as they say, this too shall pass. See y'all real soon. In the meantime, why don't y'all get to know some of the natives?
Kill them or be killed!
You all are some bona fide cutthroat killers. This is gonna be fun.
Okay, so my initial intake from the cutscene is that it's beautifully shot, it looks so crisp and clean, and the action sequences are absolutely phenomenal. And if you missed the news before, all maps in Black Ops 7 Zombies' DLC will be receiving intro cutscenes and CGI ending cutscenes, so it is not going to suffer from the same issues that Black Ops 6 Zombies has had, which is going to be great for our original cast. In spite of some great action and some great moments, I feel like the cutscene overall though is is quite underwhelming, especially when we have so many questions. And a big problem throughout Black Ops 6 Zombies has been a lack of emotional connections to the characters because they've not been getting enough dialogue from map to map, not enough cutscenes, etc. So I was hoping that this first cutscene for the game would have some interactions between both sets of the crews, because this is the first time they are meeting. And yet we didn't receive any of that. And I've seen so many people comparing it to, for example, Shadows of Evil's cutscene, where we don't get much dialogue, or Origins cutscene, where again we barely get anything and the original characters barely talk at all. But I think thematically, culturally, when these maps released and what they were trying to tell were very different, and the storytelling that is told through the visuals, etc. is very different as well. There's a lot of storyline information you can digest and interpret from both of these cutscenes that's very different to this cutscene, which feels a lot more surface level. But if I compare these cutscenes directly, I will be here for hours, so I'm not going to do that. But I do feel some of these arguments have been in bad faith, but it might be something I want to tackle in a future video, but I would be there for too long if I tried to do it in this one. So the cutscene begins with the Terminus characters getting teleported in, exactly the same as the Reckoning ending, and then of course they're greeted to the original characters and Richtofen says, "Welcome to the party." To which then this new cowboy character walks in with 2 cages in his hands, holding some skulls with some mist illuminating from them. Very creepy. This new villain has so much aura. Of course, many people are comparing him to Fallout, which I see the similarity. However, this has been a character that Treyarch have been planning for a while, because this is seemingly the exact same person that appears in Ava Jansen's mirror at the ending of Modern Warfare Zombies, and she then gets taken into the Dark Ether as well. So this could mean 2 things. Ava Jansen may be appearing in Black Ops 7 Zombies if she just got sucked into the Dark Ether, and let's just forget about time, because whilst it's of course set in the future, the Dark Ether is a bit of a mesh and a blending of time. And we do know that this map in particular is described as a Bermuda Triangle of sorts, where it's a combination of all of space and time. So it's possible she got taken from the future, but we will stumble along her in the Dark Ether, potentially in this map or one of the future ones. Now, if she is not pulled back in time or pulled back through some sort of temporal bootstrap paradox into this era we're now in, inside of the Dark Ether, then it would suggest that this main villain survives post Black Ops 7 Zombies if time doesn't catch up to Modern Warfare Zombies in 2021 onwards. So essentially, before the 2 sets of crews have any time to speak to one another, this character starts ominously speaking, literally echoing like he's a voiceover, he's a narrator in his old Western accent. And it then pans up to his hat, which seems to show 2 dual-wielding pistols, and then there appears to be swords going through the middle, forming an X, and then there appears to be a tiny skull in the middle, and he says indeed it is a party, and then he removes his glasses, which show them all white. They kind of look like the Eclipse on Der Riese, for example. That's what it's really reminded me of, but he looks zombified. His skin looks all rotten, and he has all this dark mascara kind of, obviously it's not mascara, around his eyes that look all smudged, and then he holds open the skulls, which have this white mist illuminating from them, which appears to be just like the skull of Nan Sapwa. And then he absorbs and sucks out the essence of both the Terminus crew as well as the original characters. So a lot is happening all at once here, and he appears to absorb their essence, which I guess charges him up or powers him in some capacity. And then before they've got any idea of what is going on to figure out, he then leaves through the portal and welcomes them to the residents, the natives of the Dark Ether, which are of course the zombies, who then start awakening. But who exactly is this new villain? Well, from prior leaks, he's been described by Tom Henderson as the Warden. I think that's just a codename for the character. He is not the Warden of Alcatraz. This is a new character, but he does appear to be a sheriff of some kind. Personally, I'm leaning towards him being a newer villain. Lots of people right now are speculating that he could be Jebediah Brown, the creator of the Pack-a-Punch, but to me, I just don't see it. For one, Jeb Brown was always just described as a blacksmith. Of course, the Shadowsmiths were mentioned in Modern Warfare Zombies, so there's a potential connection there.
He is searching for you. The Shadowsmiths will take you.
but as far as we were aware, he is not also a sheriff. Now, there's the possibility that he went into the Dark Ether and became this nefarious agenda over time, just like when Zykov was trapped into the Dark Ether and become this evil maniac. But to me, Jeb Brown in my head has always been a kind of loser. I mean, he literally pack-a-punched his own mother. I really do like the theory, but I do think this is probably a new character, but I'll have a separate video coming out in the future talking about who this character is. Also, Jeb Brown was killed by zombies, so he should be dead. Of course, it's possible, you know, some remnants of him ended up in the Dark Ether or whatnot, or an alternate version of him from another universe. I do think whoever this new character is, though, might not be the main villain. They could be a victim themselves, because he does say, "I know you're all confused, so was I, but as they say, this too shall pass." This implies to me that, just like the Terminus crew getting sucked into the Dark Ether or the original characters, this villain has suffered the same fate as them, where they weren't a part of the Dark Ether, they got thrown into the Dark Ether at some point, just like the other characters, probably during the collapse of the old multiverse on Tag de Toten, and then he has been recruited, or something has happened to him, or maybe his own essence has been taken, and then he has to try and steal the essence of other characters to try and charge him up and boost his health or power. Because like I said, he looks zombified, he looks mutated, so maybe he suffered the same fate as the characters and he's now inflicting the same thing onto them that's happened to him, and he might be in the same position, and actually there might be an even bigger bad that we're going to have to find out about, but only time will tell. Maybe the Shadowsmiths. But like I said, I'll talk more about that in the future. But yeah, I think that's the biggest problem with the cutscene. Too much is happening at once. I think Black Ops 6 Zombies, like I said, has felt very underbaked with inconsistent character arcs, and a lot has felt rushed and felt nostalgia baity. We get broken out on Terminus, then we find out about the Sentinel Artifact from a different storyline that's just there for nostalgia bait. We go to France, we get the Sentinel Artifact, we go back to Liberty Falls, we rescue Richtofen, we then save his family if that's the canon ending, then we are randomly sucked into the Dark Ether from the Sentinel Artifact. We have no indication why it even does that. It's very different to what we were ever taught in the Chaos story. Then we randomly meet the original characters, and before we have any chance to speak to them and get to know each other, this random cowboy shows up and steals the essence. Now, this cowboy is most likely the same person as the Grey Voice, the Shadow Benefactor speaking to Panos throughout Black Ops 6 Zombies, but I guess technically it is not confirmed. So after the essence of the characters is taken, you see they all become zombified now, and they all have the white eyes similar to the Grey Voice. And that's why I think the Grey Voice has had the same thing happen to him, and he's not going to be the main villain. It's possible that he actually suffered a similar fate. Like I said, he might still be a villainous character, he's out for bad and selfish means to try and restore himself, but he might have been forced into this situation due to suffering something similar. But yeah, Takeo looks very similar to Zetsubo no Shima here, with the pale skin and the veins going through. So this is why the characters end up dying in the Modern Warfare Zombies intro cutscene due to their Dark Ether exposure. It's from this event, which has me wondering what will happen to the original characters by the end of the story. Will they just permanently be locked into the Dark Ether to defend against the Shadowsmiths? And then basically all the zombies start pouring in. We get this awesome scene of Nikolai shooting the zombie, and we get a line from him saying, "Kill or be killed."
Hell pigs. Kill them or be killed.
And it does seem to be his original voice actor, Fred Tatasciore, voicing him. Unfortunately, the only two original characters we hear in this, or any characters for that matter, are indeed Richtofen and Nikolai speaking. And like I said before, lots of people are saying, well, we've had so many other cutscenes where they've not spoken much, but I don't think that's the main problem. Like I said, it's the fact it's coming on the back of Black Ops 6 Zombies where that has been a problem. I'm sure they're going to introduce a lot more information to us as we get to actually play the map and we find out about the characters and why the original characters are back, and we learn about how the original characters and the new characters get to know each other, etc. But to me, I do think some of that should have been in this cutscene before the Warden character showed up. I think we should have gotten about 30 seconds of dialogue or something like that. For example, if we look at the Giants intro cutscene, it's one of the best cutscenes ever, and I think the reason why it's so great is they get some great moments at the start where they are talking amongst each other and then trying to convince Richtofen not to activate the teleporter, and then he does so, and then he gets shot. I think the reason why Ultimus Richtofen getting shot by why Primus Richtofen coming out of the teleporter is so shocking is largely because they had some quiet moments at the start to discuss amongst one another. Without that dialogue, if you just got shot from the get-go and then all of the fighting with the zombies ensued, it would remove a lot of that mystery. And I think that's what this cutscene is missing, just some quiet moments there. We do get, of course, a little bit of the great voice introducing himself, which is about just enough, but it does feel very random that this cowboy just comes out of nowhere. But then we see Takeo going ham with his katana, we get some shots of Carver again going ham, and then Richtofen is in fact a Nazi. He's a literal Nazi this time. Of course, we had Ultimus Richtofen before, but he wasn't really a true Nazi because he wasn't happy that Group 935 sold out to the Reichstag, and that's why he went against Group 935, plotting in secrecy. But this Richtofen is clearly a racist, and he gives this nasty glance to Carver for obvious reasons, and it makes me wonder, is this going to be a character arc throughout the storyline where Richtofen's going to grow to not be a Nazi, not be racist? It's going to be strange to say the least how Treyarch actually handle this and pull it off in a respectful manner. I guess we will have to wait and see how they actually handle his arc, assuming Richtofen's going to be one of the leaders of the crew like he's typically been in the old story. How are they going to do that if he's a literal Nazi? And how is Weaver going to react to seeing this alternate version of Richtofen, especially when he of course killed the family of the other version of Richtofen? I think that's why this cutscene feels so jarring. Surely the very first thing the new characters would say upon seeing this other version of Richtofen is like, what the fuck is going on? They would be so confused, and yet there's not even a moment to think about it. Then they're just suddenly fighting zombies. It's crazy. But yeah, I do think that there's going to be an original character and a new character that are each going to bond with one another, or at least have some sort of character arc with one another. I'll talk more about this in a future video going over the DLC maps. Then we just see them all fighting. Tank Dempsey and Gray seem to be helping one another, and then Maya is just going ham on the zombies, ripping them apart with a knife, and then we see Takeo again going ham, slitting off the heads of the zombies, and then Maya goes and takes the katana from Takeo, and then she begins slashing the zombies. So I do think if they go this route where in each of the DLC maps the crew tries to restore their essence or soul that was stolen from them, then I think a good route to go down would be where there's one character from each sets of crews that sort of work together on each of the DLCs. Then we get some shots of Weaver. I really like Weaver's design with this sickly look, and then he points at Nikolai. Of course, they're both Russians, so I think those are going to be the two characters who are going to be helping one another on a DLC map and come together. And then we see they are exiting out of the Janus Tower's reception, and they shoot the roof to knock down some debris that halts the zombies, and then Richtofen is standing there shooting the zombies, and the zombie animations look so cool. And then he uses the grenade launcher on the gun, which blows up the Janus Towers, and then they escape out into the actual Dark Ether section of the map. So I'm not sure how much the Janus Towers reception is going to be a part of the map, especially now that it's destroyed. Probably some of it is going to be, but I don't think all of it will be. And then it cuts to the shot of this great voice character with his cowboy hat on and his sunglasses, and then there is the vehicle that says something Jesse. I can't make it out exactly, and there's actually a lot to take out of this shot. They've also released a poster of it, and it's very cool. So first of all, there is in fact a zombie bear that's probably going to be the elite enemy on the map. I can't wait for that. That is so cool. This is probably the creepy sounds that we were hearing in one of the teaser videos. only that, but we do see this appears to be some sort of new version of the Denizens. Of course, because this is some sort of transit-inspired map, that makes a lot of sense. It looks very similar to the Bios, which are actually why the Denizens were created by Broken Arrow, that we see in the comic books for COD Zombies that were released. So, since we're going back to transit in some way, shape, or form on this map, they are probably going to be here. This is probably going to be the replacement to the vermin, the parasites / the spiders, and I really like that they've gone with these designs. This seems a lot more aesthetic and a lot more in line with zombies, and I'm glad we're getting new enemy types here. We do then also see a zombie, which seems to be this hillbilly zombie that looks mighty similar to the groundskeeper from Liberty Falls. I mean, it very well could be, considering we have a section from Janus Towers' reception here. Parts of Liberty Falls are going to be here. We see many different zombie types, so we have the hillbilly sort of redneck zombies. We see in the intro there are some what looks to be Nazi zombies there as well, so you've got a bit of a combination of different types of zombies, and the wheels of the vehicle are just absolutely tearing up the zombies. So yeah, this is the wonder vehicle that can be upgraded. We know we can get the Abomination heads to go on the front of it. It does appear to have a goat skull or a skull of some other animal on the front of it. It looks very cool. I really like this cover art. It looks absolutely phenomenal. But there's even more to take out of this, because in his eyes there are two different things that you can make note of. The first is that it appears to be in one of his eyes Ascension / Launch, which is the multiplayer map that Ascension is based on. So this is going to be one of the points of interest on the map. There's going to be more points of interest in the original transit. I think 6, maybe 7. Dalek did do a recreation of it a while ago, so this is going to be one of the points of interest. So it's not just a transit remake. There are going to be sections from different maps, kind of like Revelations. We know that Farm is of course a section, but it appears there might be the diner section as well, and the power plant, and maybe some other places. But there's going to be some places from other maps as well, so I'm really interested to see how that plays out, especially because there was a space station map leaked. So maybe if there is a part of Ascension on this map, that could tie into why we actually go there. And then in the other eye, there appears to be a pyramid, which looks like some kind of Mayan pyramid. There is this glowing aura at the top of it and a symbol that I can't really make out. It looks to be in a jungle. It looks very similar to Shangri-La. I've recently done videos actually about the pyramids from the Ether story and how these were actually teleportation beacons. I'll leave a link to that video in the description. It really makes me wonder if this has any connection to that old story and why this pyramid is here, and if it's able to harness power, what exactly is it used for. This is going to be a section on the map. This was actually referenced by the Great Voice as well in the Intel to Panos on Reckoning. It appears to be this floating temple above a lake, so there is going to be this section that's entirely brand new, it seems. Maybe it is Shangri-La inspired, but it's not going to be exactly Shangri-La for sure from what we've seen. So that's everything I've been able to make out from the cutscene, but now I want to go through Call of Duty's blog that I'll leave a link to in the description as well and talk about some really interesting things. So it says a battle atop the headquarters of Project Janus turns into a terrifying dimensional dive into the dark ether. Welcome to the party. After a tumultuous battle high atop of Janus Towers, celebrations are abruptly short-lived as Gregory Weaver, Elizabeth Gray, Mackenzie Carver, and Maya Aguinaldo are thrust into the dark ether dimension. The crew don't even have time to pick themselves up from the ground before they are startled by the arrival of a welcoming committee. It's a party and y'all are the guests of honor, which the Great Voice says. A southern drawl echoes across the lobby. All 8 turn as a mysterious figure slowly descends the lobby steps, his face hidden by a wide-brimmed hat. The man's polite turn of phrase is unnerving, but it's the caged totem skulls he carries in each hand that suggest a much more terrifying entity has entered the fray. So I really like the villainous and scary nature of this villain. He does seem a bit generic though. We've seen in many different forms of media these sort of cowboy villains, so I'm hoping he has a bit more unique flair as we get to know him more, but he's a lot better than recent villains we've gotten. I mean, if we look at Black Ops 6 Zombies, I guess Sam was kind of a villain, but we didn't really get any major villains. And it's great now, it seems like we're going to be getting some villain that feels a lot more threatening. Hopefully over the course of DLC, he could be propped up more like a Shadow Man type character. Of course, many people in the past when we first saw him in Modern Warfare Zombies thought he was the Shadow Man. Well, now it turns out he wasn't, which is unfortunate. That would have been so cool, but there is the possibility there are some connections with Monty or the Shadow Man, especially because he's carrying 2 skulls. Could they be the dead skulls of Monty and the Shadow Man? Potentially. That's one idea I'll talk about more in the future. Speaking of the skulls, a skull detaches its jaw and violently expunges life force from the assembled crew, sucking essence into its maw while sharing its meal with its master, seemingly granting the mysterious figure more than a taste of their souls. Satiated, he slowly turns and leaves, but not before summoning some immediate reanimated threats for the team to deal with. So yes, this character steals their essence, but I'm confused here, because it's essentially saying here he steals their souls, and I don't know if they're just speaking metaphorically, but the original crew, which of course we don't know why why they are here, shouldn't have souls. It's heavily implied in the rest of the blog, which I'll go on to in a second, that these versions of the characters are from the old multiverse that got thrown into the Dark Ether on Tag der Toten. They're not Ultimus or Primus, they're a different set of crews that have all come together and they didn't know each other before being set in, and they're from different alternative universes. However, the point of the Tag der Toten ending is that Ultimus and Primus's souls were the same. All versions of the original characters shared the same soul, and they were bonded with the Elemental Shard, and the Ether itself, which got purged into the Dark Ether. The Elemental Shard and the Summoning Key was destroyed, both of which contained the souls of the original crew. Monty describes in Grodd Crovey them all as being like snowflakes, essentially all sharing the same soul. This is why, when Ultimus's souls are bonded with the Elemental Shard, it's not just Ultimus that is connected to the Ether itself, it's all versions of the original characters, including Primus. This is also why, when the characters collect the souls of the 1.0s in Black Ops 3 zombies, the Primus crew do not have their souls, because even though the Ultimus versions are collected, it doesn't matter, they all share the same souls. And they were all in the Summoning Key, their souls were all bonded with the Elemental Shard that was destroyed. Well, all of the souls apart from Nikolai, because Grodd Crovey hadn't happened yet in Black Ops 4 Zombies in the Broken Cycle. However, he was still bonded with the Elemental Shard, so none of these characters should have souls, so I hope that Trek are not just abandoning this plot point. I hope they give a valid reason for why the original crew are back. I hope they don't just say, well, it's an alternative version from the old multiverse that got thrown into the Dark Ether, and don't really explain much beyond that, because that's not good enough to me. It's not a good enough reason. It undoes the point of Tag der Toten's ending and their sacrifice and suffering. It undoes the whole thing about the shared souls. And yeah, I guess over the course of the Easter egg on the map, or even moving into the DLC, we'll be trying to re-get the souls of the original characters and the new crew. The Drain crew scrambles into action, forced into a ballet of blood and guts as they slowly tear apart the undead. It's only after the 8 of them step out into what once was Janus Towers' plaza that full realization becomes apparent. We're not in West Virginia anymore. So yeah, the plaza is going to be playable. I'm not sure how much more, but yeah, they're not in West Virginia anymore. As to why this part of Liberty Falls is here, did it just get plunged into the Dark Ether when we got teleported in? I don't think so, because from the ending with both Sam and Richtofen, they appear to be there in the regular world and nothing gets removed. But of course, the Dark Ether clones part of the regular world, so that's probably why. So even though there's 8 characters, you can only play as 4 of them, but you can mix and match between the new crew and the old crew. And apparently mix and matching is where the best dialogue is going to be. And like I said, you're probably going to get the best dialogue with the certain crew that are sort of teaming up together. So I really do think it's probably going to be Weaver and Nikolai bonding because they're both Russian, Maya and Takio, judging by that scene with the katana, Carver and Richtofen, because maybe they're going to give some weird racism redemption arc with them, and then maybe Gray and Dempsey. I don't know, we're just going to have to wait and see about that. The blog then gives recaps of the new crew. I'm not going to go over that, you all know who they are, but you can check out the blog in the description. But the most interesting stuff is about the original characters who are now back. So like I said before, they are going to be from alternative versions, alternative timelines of each of the original characters. They're not Ultimus or Primus, they're a brand new version of the characters that are different to the ones we've seen before, but similar in some ways as well. I think it's from the old multiverse that got thrown into the Dark Ether, explaining why they are here, why they are back. However, it could also be that the multiverse is coming back. The Sentinel artifact seemed to open up a universe in the sky at the ending of Reckoning, which is very similar to what the Agarthan device does at the ending of Tag der Toten. So it's possible the multiverse is slowly restoring, and that's what this great voice character is trying to do by harvesting the essence. He's trying to bring the original multiverse back, like the leaks described. But Dempsey's description says this incarnation of Tank Dempsey is a battle-hardened US Marine who most recently fought through the jungle of 1968 Vietnam with grit, sarcasm, and a relentless will to survive. In this fractured reality, his distrust of his new companions and the unfamiliar surroundings have turned this otherwise dependable soldier into the unpredictable wildcard of the group. So yes, it seems like the leaks are true. So previously, it was leaked that the DLC maps were going to be Vietnam, Afghanistan, an alternate version of New York where the Nazis won the war and a nuclear bomb had been detonated there, and a Shoin temple with an erupting volcano behind. And judging by the original characters' descriptions, it seems like the home universes they are all from are from these DLC maps. So most likely the multiverse is going to be restoring in the DLC, and we're going to have to somehow retrieve the essence of each of the original characters, kind of in an opposite way to collecting the souls in Black Ops 3. Essentially, this game's storyline is going to be a repeat of Black Ops 3 in reverse, where instead of collecting the souls of each of the characters, we're going to be going to thematic places for each of the crews from their home universes to stop their souls being harvested. So Dempsey's map is going to be Vietnam. Takeo Masaki's description says he's a disgraced Ronin who wandered 1591 feudal Japan without master or honor, carrying the weight of his exile as a yoke he cannot cast off. Bound by a code he only still barely believes in, he seeks redemption in the chaos of battle. His blade, both a burden he must bear and a judgment on his enemies. So yeah, of course, Tom Kane suffered a stroke, so he's not going to be playing Takeo. I think they're probably just going to be getting a authentic Japanese actor to voice Takeo this time. Some people are saying, what if he's just going to speak Japanese, considering that he shouldn't really know English if he comes from 1591 feudal Japan. I don't think they're going to do that though, just because it makes him less accessible to most fans who don't understand Japanese, even if they do have subtitles. We'll have to wait and see though. I think that would be a good route to go though. Each of the characters get very short descriptions, by the way. I do wish they got a bit more. I don't think they should be revealing too much information though, but I do wish some of this information was unveiled in the cutscene. That's why I say there should have been 30 seconds to a minute at the beginning where we just learn a little bit about each of the characters. Because why are we reading a blog to find this out? We shouldn't be reading a blog to find this out. We should be either discovering this in-game through the quotes when we play for the first time, or have little inklings in the cutscene itself. And yet we don't get any of that. It feels weird. Back in the day, we weren't learning the Ether story through reading a blog post. It doesn't feel emotional. You don't actually connect to these characters. It just feels like you're digesting information without the actual weight there, especially when you're not learning it from them themselves. So of course Takeo's map is going to be the Shoin Temple with the erupting volcano. Nikolai's description says Soviet tank commander Nikolai Belinsky arrives in the dark ether from the brutal, mountainous landscape of 1984 Afghanistan, where duty, disillusionment, and misfortune collided. So yes, he's going to be for the Afghanistan map. Scarred by war and haunted by betrayal and his own decisions, he masks his bitterness with the dark humor, yet remains a steadfast warrior when the shells begin to fall. And this is why I think he's going to bond with Weaver over that shared resentment for what Russia has become. Then finally we have the most controversial one, Dr. Edward Richtofen. He looks too fine to be a Nazi, Jesus Christ. Dr. Edward Richtofen, a brilliant but unhinged scientist and hero of the Reich, finds himself torn from 1945 in a world where the Axis powers triumphed over the Allied nations. So like I said, I think this is going to be the most interesting character to see how they handle him and how he plays out, because he's literally a hero of the Reich. This is so different to his Ultimus version that was literally like this ironic gay Nazi that just wore the outfit because he thought it looked cool, and then he was backstabbing Green 935 and all of this stuff. How are they going to handle this character if he's genuinely a monster and literally seen as a hero, and the world he came from is where the Nazis won? How are they going to describe that world to us? How are they going to describe life in a world where the Nazis won? And how is he going to realize it's wrong, assuming that he will? I just don't know how they're going to do that, honestly, because he's surely going to be a leader of the characters for us to be able to work with him throughout the course of all of the DLCs. You would think we're not just going to hate him the whole time, so how on earth is he going to grow as a character and it not feel very strange and weird? The dialogue between Carver is going to be so jarring. It has the potential to go very wrong. It has the potential to be funny. It has the potential to be so controversial. It has the potential to be so many things depending on how they handle it. So I wonder how Treyarch are going to tiptoe around the subject matter. I hope they have a good action plan in place. Shaped by ambition and tainted by corruption, he masks his innate sadism and considerable ego behind quick wit and a charming smile. He vows that reality itself will ultimately bow to his designs. So yeah, sounds very similar to Ultimus Richtofen with his sadism and ego, and it is interesting they're describing him as having a charming smile, because, you know, I do think that is why the Nazis were so successful. Unfortunately, they were able to be charismatic and win people over, and I'm even seeing people's responses to this cutscene saying that Richtofen has so much aura, and he's aura farming, and he looks so good and all of these things, and yeah, I guess it's historically accurate in a way. This is why so many people thought Hitler was so successful in the world. So yeah, like I said, I have no idea how they're going to handle him as a character. I think it has the potential to be really interesting though. I just do not know if the current writing team has the capabilities of pulling it off in a meaningful and nuanced way, because, you know, they've not been handling the character writing well at all in Black Ops 6, and those characters of course had so much less weight to them than a literal Nazi that I assume is going to get some sort of arc with Carver in some way. How are they going to pull that off in a respectful manner that makes sense as well and doesn't just piss off loads of people in every single community? I just don't know. I struggle to know how I even talk about this in videos, especially if it becomes an integral part of the storyline. I have no idea how they're going to handle it. But anyways, they last say, ripped from their respective timelines, our expanded crew finds themselves thrown together in an alien dimension, accompanied by old friends, uncertain allies, and something far, far worse, which I'm guessing is referring to the Grey Voice. But yeah, that is exactly what's happened. They've been ripped from their original dimensions, which I'm guessing missing, like I say, is the collapse of the multiverse in Tag to Totem. But then they end off the blog saying, incoming Intel Blast, full zombies reveal next week. It was supposed to be happening this week though. They say head back to the Call of Duty blog next week and prepare for a massive Intel Blast detailing extensive gameplay systems, enemies, and feature content coming to Black Ops 7 directly from the Treyarch Zombies team. We know they're going to be giving us a blog post on the Wonder Vehicle, the gameplay systems, including a new way to reward hardcore players. So that'll all be coming next week, probably the gameplay trailer moving up to Call of Duty next at the end of the month. But we did get the logo revealed today, so they're not just completely done with revealing information, it's just going to be a lot slower for the rest of the time. But let me know what you think of the intro cutscene, let me know what you think of all of this information. It's hard to digest it all. I think this has the potential to go very wrong in many ways if the future cutscenes do not give us enough proper dialogue, and I am worried that there's an over-bloated cast still, which was a problem in Black Ops 6 where the characters were not getting enough dialogue, and now we have 8 main characters. How are they all going to get enough room to talk and flesh out everyone? Because not only do they need to give the original characters enough room, they need to have the Terminus crew having enough dialogue as well, and because you're not going to be able to play as all of them at once, it's going to feel very, very strange where they're not all being able to talk with one another, unless they'll have the other ones on comms if you don't select them. I don't know how they're going to handle that at all. They did the same with Alpha Omega, but with Alpha Omega you had 2 versions of the same character, so it was a bit different, whereas these are completely different people. Anyways, that's all I want to say in this video. Plenty more videos to come, like I said, one talking about who the villain actually is, one talking more in depth about the DLC map, since now that leak seems to be true. Anyways, thank you for watching the video. Make sure to subscribe if you're not already for latest and greatest Call of Duty news information. So anyways, thank you for watching, and bye.